Hey, welcome to a new episode of M3, our midweek micro message, where we stop as often as we can to talk about everyday topics, but from a biblical perspective. We've been out for a little while. It's good to be back. But hey, today, let's get to the message. I just want to take a moment and talk about Jesus's friend Peter. Most of us are familiar with scripture when Jesus is arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. And Peter, his friend, he came to Jesus' defense and he cut off the ear of one of the men who was trying to apprehend Jesus. But when we go and we take a look at the text, there's something interesting that happens. What did Jesus do? Jesus looked at Peter and then he restored the man's ear because the fight wasn't Peter's, it was his. And Peter did what he thought was right to protect his friends. But what he didn't see was God's purpose. What he saw was an attack on his friend. And sometimes that can cause us to do things that perhaps we should delay or not do at all. When we think about the scriptures, it teaches us that friends are there in times of adversity. And this was the case for Peter, and oftentimes that's the case for us, or at least it should be. However, one thing we have to keep in mind is when we face oppositions, we have to remind our friends, even though they are there for us, they're standing up for us, and all of those things, we have to remind our friend, hey, this fight is not yours. In other words, should encourage them, pardon me, to avoid unnecessary sin. And by that I mean metaphorically, we should encourage them. Hey, listen, this is my thing. This is what I have to deal with. This is what God has presented me in a moment, and whatever the conflict may be is something for me to deal with, not you. So metaphorically, we don't want those, even when they come to our defense, we don't want them to get blood on their hands. There's an old proverb that says, not a proverb from scripture, but there's an old proverb that says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And what the proverb suggests is this, is that two parties, they can work, or at least they should attempt to work together against a common enemy. And when we think about what's happening in the Garden of Gethsemane and how Peter took a move to stand up boldly for Jesus, when we think about this, the men that came to arrest Jesus, they were not his enemies, and they were not Peter's enemies either. Evil was the enemy. And oftentimes we will see that manifest itself even in some of our relationships when people oppose us for things that they don't understand. And oftentimes, yes, it's a matter of the flesh, but evil is somewhere involved in the mix. You may be saying, well, okay, Pastor, what's the point here? Here it is right here. We should unite, as the proverb suggests, to confront the cause of the problem, not the people. Because oftentimes people do not see uh, the things that they're doing and how things can be so destructive and disruptive until after the fact. In other words, we should work to change the unwanted behavior that we see. At least try to have some discussion and dialogue to clear up misunderstandings. And oftentimes that's difficult to do because people don't care if they're misunderstood or not. They just don't, they just want their way. And we have to be honest with ourselves. Some people are not just, they just simply won't like us. And we're the same way. There are others that we won't like either. But the thing is, we have to work towards changing together those unwanted behaviors. And instead, when we do this, we don't want to create a new enemy for our friends that are willing to stand up for us. Again, we have to remind them when we face confrontation, we have to let them know, I need your support, I need your love, I need your caring. But ultimately, the fight is ours. Before I go, I want to encourage you to take a look at our Facebook page. Take a look at the calendar. A lot of stuff going on the Hill, as it always is. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, or actually tonight, Wednesday night, our theological studies, 6 p.m. Hope that you can be there. And as always, you're welcome to join us Sunday morning at 10 a.m. for worship. We are live on YouTube. If you can't find us, just go to our Facebook page. There's always a link there to lead you to our live stream. And also, you can subscribe on YouTube, and you'll never miss an M3 message, a sermon, or anything else that we're doing on the Hill. This has been your midweek micro message. Be a friend like Peter. but also understand God's purpose in the matter. We'll see you next week.